it's weird. I mean.
Right. So, yes. You're watching Conversations with Barbara, and I am Barbara Kanellopoulos. And I'm here today with Dr. Matthew Scinto, who has come all the way from, I think it's Brewster, to talk to us about the concert that's coming up. He is the artistic director and the founder of the Cape Cod Chamber Orchestra. And its debut concert is coming right up.
That's right.
So tell our viewers about this exciting concert.
So the concert will be April 15th at 3 p.m. at Pilgrim Congregational Church. And it's extra special for me because I work at Pilgrim Church. It was really the first music job I got when I moved down to Cape Cod, and I direct the handbell choir. And it's, believe it or not, there's oftentimes a very long-standing tradition of handbells at churches, and they have a huge collection of handbells. They have, I think, around 50 bells. So it opened my my eyes to what's possible,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
But I love making music with them, and I decided to.
Are they ancient, old bells?
Oh no, they're relatively new, and you know, from what I could tell, quite expensive. So, but I started working at the church there, and it's a beautiful space at Pilgrim Church in the sanctuary, and it could fit easily 20 or 25 musicians. So that's why I decided to have the concert there, and also for the church community as well. I mean, they're very excited about you know, hosting us, and have been very helpful and involved since I came up with the idea. The concert itself is in celebration of National Poetry Month, and that really speaks to what I want to do with the orchestra, which is to have it be a collaborative orchestra and to find different ways to bring together people around Cape Cod that might necessarily not have ever been to a classical music concert or have heard a piece of Debussy or Mahler. And by having poetry as the centerpiece, I designed a musical program to fit around that. And I feel very strongly about contemporary music and new music. And I knew when I started to create the program that I wanted at the centerpiece for there to be a new commission for my friend and colleague Francis Snyder to write. We went to Boston University together. That's where I met him and was exposed to his music. And I love his style and what he brings to orchestra writing.
When you said poetry, it seems to me, am I right to think that there's a natural link between music and poetry? I understand that when you read poetry, you must think about the rhythm. And of course, music is rhythm.
Absolutely, and there's so many connections between music and language.
Yes.
And oftentimes you can set you can set poetry to music, and they really can complement each other, even in the composition. You wouldn't think that, how can sounds relate to words? But a lot of the best composers have found a way to do that.
I have to tell you, my favorite poem is Dover Beach.
Yes.
Benjamin Britten?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he found a way to do that. And I'm so happy Francis Snyder, our composer, has really found a way to do that with Judith Askew's poetry. She's a poet that lives on Cape Cod here. I was introduced to her poetry through the Cape Cod Writers Center, and her words spoke to me very naturally.
Yes.
I'm not a poetry buff, so it's not like I was reading her work with all this preconceived idea of, you know, what good poetry is. The best kind, right, is that in music too, which you don't need any prior knowledge, that it speaks to you and works on you. Right.
Hers is very accessible, and and Cape Codders will love this. Here we are on the edge of the sea.
Yeah, here at the edge of the sea.
Here at the edge of the sea.
So that's the book of poems, and what we've done is select 3 poems from the book, and Francis is setting them, each of them, to music. And Judy will fortunately be at the concert, and she will read each of the poems, and then we'll play the musical representation.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. What a great idea.
And I think it's nice because it opens everyone's, I guess, it opens their concept and interpretation, because oftentimes if you're listening to a piece of music that has narration, right, that's one way to deal with text in music. Yeah. The other way is to have it sung or spoken. But oftentimes you're being told what to listen to through either the vocalist or the narrator. This way it kind of is it's a cohesive form of the piece. It doesn't necessarily mean that Francis is writing it from beginning to end the way the poetry is. It will encompass the atmosphere and the environment of the poetry.
So I think that's good. That's good. You're doing justice to both the music and to the poetry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what a good idea.
The rest of the musical program is also inspired by poetry and song, and of course, song is poetry. I mean, it's words that set to music. That's where we come up with the idea of song. It's sung.
I love the idea that you are introducing poetry written by children. Are they high schoolers?
Yeah. High school. Yeah. So
that's excellent.
When I started the concept and was working on the program, I wanted to involve the students in some way. So I wrote to Miss Doyle at Monomoy High School, and I was wondering, do you have any poetry that your students have written? And fortunately, they had just finished a book of poetry in her creative writing class.
Great.
So she's helping me, and she's going to provide me with posters of the student poems, and we'll have them on display.
Oh, good.
In the sanctuary. So as people walk into the church, they'll be around and something to check out before the concert, and maybe at intermission they can go up and hopefully meet the students that will be there. And also at the reception, we'll have them on display. So I wanted it to be sort of like a gallery so the experience of the concert doesn't end after the music. So you go to the reception, you get your cake and cookie, whatever you want, and then walk around and hopefully meet the students and look at their work. So.
Yeah, you've just described a really entertaining afternoon. Beautiful music, poetry, the children and their posted poems. That sounds really delightful.
And that speaks to what I want to be doing with this orchestra.
Right.
So it needs to be collaborative in nature. And I mean, we're speaking before about different arts groups scattered around Cape Cod, and oftentimes you live in a bubble almost.
Exactly.
Right, with visual artists here, and then you have poets and writers here, and I really want to bring everyone together, and music is a great avenue for people to meet, and hopefully we'll bring in different audience members as well. So our musical program, we have music of Gustav Mahler and Debussy and Elgar, and those are pretty popular composers, and the works I chose are popular. So I think I will bring in the classical music buffs to the concert, but hopefully with the connection with Judy's poetry, I'll bring in writers and poets and appreciators of that sphere that maybe don't have a lot of exposure and experience with classical music.
I gather you have a special interest in contemporary music that's being written today.
Yeah, I think it's, we were also, before we were speaking about in visual art and maybe in theater and dance, they embrace contemporary music. They embrace new writers. They embrace new art.
Yes, it's always something new.
Classical music is, we don't really embrace it. And part of the problem is there's such a tradition of the way music was composed for a very long time. And then when you get to the 20th century, composers thought, well, everything's been done, so we need to come up with new ideas. And as a result of that, there's been so much experimentation over the past 100 years or so in musical styles that I don't think audiences really know what contemporary music, what it means, because there's such a vast array of styles out there, and I think there's good and bad that's resulted from that. There are some contemporary music that doesn't speak to me, and I don't have interest in that in new music. And there's other composers that write in a more popular style that you can maybe hum a tune when you hear a performance of their music, and they're bringing something extra special in that they're writing music in 2018. And when you hear, say, a piece of Johannes Brahms, you're hearing music written over 100 years ago by one gentleman in particular that lived in one area of the country, of the world, and it's not a very diverse experience. I don't think when people think of classical music, they think of it being a diverse experience.
No, you know, that's so interesting
Right?
that you've said that, because, you know, you are right. It isn't. It's specific to a time and place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been that way for a very long time, and I think that's why it's difficult to break away from that and to make change.
So why shouldn't music express human experience as it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about my experiences in my lifetime, your experiences in your lifetime. They were not the same experiences as our favorite composers at all. I mean, it was a complete. And I don't think music is really given to Beethoven from, you know, the Almighty God. I think it's a result of his personality, his culture, his socioeconomic, political
How about the
experiences.
availability of instruments and how they were constructed?
Of course,
as well.
absolutely, right.
Yeah.
And now you can be writing for, you know, kazoo ensemble, right, if you want to. So there's such a variety of what you of composers. Exactly, you can write for a handbell choir, which a lot of people do, right?
Sure.
I mean, so there's such a variety in our world now, and that's the thing I'm struggling with. Well, why don't we embrace that? So I think if I were to, with the chamber orchestra, to make it a strictly new music ensemble, I don't think would be the best way to bring in new audiences, because I understand, and believe me, I love Mahler and Debussy and Benjamin Britten and you know, all these composers that have written masterpieces, right? It really is, they are geniuses, and we still need, and that music is still very important and still has an effect on people to empower them and to change their lives. So we do, yes, we want to keep performing that, but there has to be a balance somewhere, because I think new music, like we were saying, offers that perspective of 2018. That's incredibly rich. I mean, for me, I think it's interesting for audiences too.
So, dare I say that you are going to take Cape Cod by storm?
All right, well, we'll see what happens.
And you have this, your mission. Mission is to bring the arts together, to make classical music accessible.
Absolutely.
And And it seems to me that this is exactly what we need. We need the more music that we have, the better.
I think a lot of musicians, you know, that are my age or maybe just graduated music school, that's something they have to contend with. Well, how can I make a difference in this world now? Like, we have to be incredibly creative. I don't think maybe 60 years ago musicians had to be as creative, because classical music was still kind of ingrained and married in society. Now it's not popular culture by any means, and we have to find a way to bring in those elements from our daily lives into music. So that's just social media, right? And other avenues. Like, how are we going to find younger people? Well, they're all on Instagram.
Yeah.
They're on Facebook. So
True.
You have to find a way to tap into that. Right. I don't think there's.
At the same time, while there are musicians who live performances are hard, few and far between, because of the recording, the fact that you can listen to classical music. I got You can get Glenn Gould I got at the library the other day. So, well, of course, he's not with us. But
well, and YouTube, I think it's a great thing that that is available.
I know it is. But there are musicians who need to perform.
Right, and I think when people actually do go to a live concert, it is, I mean, it is a much different experience, and because it is live.
Yes.
You are living in the space, in the acoustic in which the music is being literally created there. I mean, when you're listening to a recording, even a very fine recording, I think it's like listening, it's like a photograph to me.
Right.
It's not born, it's not a spontaneous sort of creative act that you get when you go hear a string quartet play, or go to a jazz club and hear jazz played, right?
Yeah, live performance is only once. Only once.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like that?
Exactly, and that's what's really important about still playing live classical music. I think the internet and YouTube, however, it's not detrimental. It's a great thing because there's so much, there's a lot of education that now can be had because someone can go on YouTube and listen to, 1,000 different orchestras playing whatever types of music. It's a great thing. It's a great tool for people once they get interested in classical music and maybe are moved by a concert they saw to go and research and discover more. It's a huge world of information.
It strikes me that if we can say your own philosophy is very generous. You're very open to...
Yeah, we have to be. Maybe it's just my personality, but I'm not going to close myself off and make it seem like music is for someone that has all this knowledge and has degrees and has gone to hundreds of concerts. I'm no different than anyone. I've just been fortunate enough to have more opportunity, and because it brought happiness to my life, I sought out more of that opportunity.
Yeah.
Everyone has the capacity to develop an understanding and appreciation for music. It just isn't a day-to-day opportunity for people, right? Yeah.
And so they're missing the joy of music, and that joy is accessible. It isn't something rare that we have once or twice a year.
And I'll admit, it takes, going to an orchestra concert is a much different experience than people are used to. And that is difficult for people to cope with. I mean, the idea that you go and you sit quietly and you just listen. It's not just the listening, it's just that you take a second to remove yourself from the world around you and you focus on you, right?
Do you know that particular experience, it seems to me from what I hear from friends and see, is sought after. People are hungry for those, well, let's call it, if it's not a cliche, to be in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think more and more because we're oftentimes not in the moment at all, right? I mean, I'm constantly on my phone, or I'm on the computer, or I'm texting people, or I'm on a phone call, or you don't have a moment to collect yourself. And it's no surprise that even amongst younger people, there's such higher rates of depression and anxiety. I really feel that a lot of that can be alleviated through music and just through the experience of sitting calmly and collectively and just listening and letting sound, enter your ear and enter your mind and work on your emotional world a little bit. It's really rare that on an average day, someone has that experience. And the only reason why I'm interested in music, it's partly a selfish one in that it's helped me a lot. So I see the importance of it. That's why I want to go ahead and get out in the world and promote that.
And you have founded the Cape Cod Chamber Orchestra, which suggests something
an intimate
something
experience.
small.
Yeah, and something
and the
that
church is a great venue for that.
The church is a wonderful venue for that because you feel close to it. But it also is an organization and an ensemble that I hope to go out in different places and play, and think of different creative ways, and you got to think out of the box a little bit.
You do,
right? Because I could just play regular concerts, and I'll bring in the people that like classical music, but that's not really what I'm interested in doing. I want to try to build a wider audience here and also educate people as to what professional classical music is, right?
So this debut then, we ought to let viewers know that it is, once again, so that they will not, it is coming right up, April 15th at 3 p.m. at
Pilgrim Congregational Church. It's in Harwichport.
Harwichport. Yeah. So this debut is for you a test.
Yeah, and I think the group is going to evolve and grow, and it's a great thing. I mean, you have to be very flexible. So I'm very pleased with the feedback I've gotten. And with the program I put together. I mean, it speaks, I've gotten many positive comments on what I'm doing,
really,
because
really enjoyable.
For anyone, even if, and I think it will hopefully serve as a nice introduction for people into classical music. That's what I hope. That's what I hope for. And if it doesn't work, then back to the drawing board and you figure it out.
Right. Do you have anything else planned for after this debut concert?
We have one event, a free event at the Harwich Cultural Center on April 28th at 1 p.m. We're going to have a free concert. It's a string quartet from the orchestra is going to play there, and they'll do Debussy String Quartet and Beethoven String Quartet number 6 from Opus 18. And I'll be there. It's part of Massachusetts Art Week, which is ongoing for that week. And the Cultural Center is having an open house. So I really like what they're doing there. It's a new space that they've repurposed middle school. So rather than demolishing it completely, they've invited artists and sculptors and painters and to kind of fill in the classrooms. So people can go and they can rent the space and rent the studio space for themselves. It's very affordable.
What a great idea.
Yeah, and I went there and I saw what they're doing, and I said, I want to be a part and maybe bring some music into the equation here. So they're having an open house on April 28th, and we'll be playing, a string quartet will be playing at 1 p.m. And then I'm also doing just a brief Q&A with myself and some of the musicians, and we'll talk about the musical program and just hopefully have an open dialogue. I think people want to ask musicians questions. They just don't really have the opportunity to. Like, what's it like trying to make a life in this? What are your favorite composers? Like what other styles of music do you like to play?
What's the best time of life to get started on a particular instrument?
Sure, and I would say anytime.
Right. So, and you also have enviable. When in the summer you're going to Tanglewood? Yeah,
I'm going back there in July. I was there in 2016 for a conducting seminar, and I was invited back again this summer for a conducting seminar. And it's usually about 5 to 6 conductors, including myself, and we go and we work with the head of conducting there, Stefan Asbury, and we work actually with, they have like a resident quartet, and so rather than work with the whole orchestra, it's actually a really good teaching tool for conductors to work with just string quartet, and then you have a pianist who will cover the rest of the orchestra part. So it's almost as if you have an orchestra, but it's very condensed and reduced. So you can really work on technique and communicating with the musicians and still make music in that environment. Just because you don't have an orchestra doesn't mean you can't make music with those musicians. So it's a very concentrated, about 10 days there. And the best part for me is we get kind of like an all-access pass to Tanglewood. and can go hear rehearsals, go to the performances, hang out with the fellows that are there for the summer. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's a beautiful place.
Chances are you will also hear from other musicians about what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful networking opportunity because
yeah.
most of the musicians that are in that program are my age, right? They're
Right.
maybe still in college or just maybe a few years or a couple years out of school. So, yeah.
So you're connected with what? Tell us briefly. Viewers may want to know briefly something about how you got started. When did you begin to? What is your instrument?
Well, I'm a violist, and I play piano also. So those two instruments followed me through school. I got a bachelor's degree in viola, so that was what I formally studied at Syracuse University. And then I stayed on there and studied conducting. I started taking conducting really in my undergrad because all the performance majors are required to take a conducting class just to learn a little bit, because there are a lot of there's a high chance that you may be called on to do some conducting, especially if you're going on and doing teaching and working with the ensemble.
You've done some assistant conducting
currently,
locally.
yeah. Currently, I'm assistant for the Boston Civic Symphony. I'm about to finish my third season with them, and it's a great orchestra and a great group of people. It's about half volunteer and half conservatory music students that play in the group. Yeah, we have a concert coming up in May, so I'm helping prepare for that right now. So, yeah.
So that you decided then to concentrate on conducting.
Yeah, that is my. I mean, I never really liked playing the viola, I'll admit. I liked playing. I really enjoyed playing chamber music, playing in quartet and working with others. So I like working with people. So I think that sparked my interest in conducting. And also I really like kind of looking at a piece and analyzing it and figuring out, well, how does this work? Or, why is this chord, why does that move me so much? And I think getting really in touch with the composition and also learning about the composer and learning about what they brought to the piece, that's what conductors do. I mean,
right. And
90% of the time you have to sit and you prepare the material for rehearsal, and you have a lot of questions you need to answer about the piece. So I always enjoyed that aspect of it. The whole arm waving bit, it's required, but it's not the biggest interest to me, believe it or not. I think some people think, the conductors really like, waving your arms and making funny faces. And
so you enjoy the preparation then?
I enjoy music. This is required, but it's not it didn't push me into conducting, actually.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful because you have viewers have got a sense of what conducting is really all about. And I will really wish you well. That debut concert is coming right up, and I hope it goes well. I'll certainly be in attendance because I wouldn't miss it. It sounds like such fun.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to reading and meeting some of the poets there too. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Barbara.
And telling us about the world of music, right? Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Conversations with Barbara.